Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Helen Monroe. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. I'm 75 years old, and no, I'm not done living yet. Let me tell you something right now. You don't get to decide when someone else is finished. You don't get to silence a heartbeat just because the skin has wrinkled. And you sure as hell don't tell a woman like me to stay home and sit down, not after what I've lived through, survived, and fought for. Are you out of your mind, Grandma? You could fall. You could have a stroke on the road. That's how it started, the yelling. My grandson Daniel stood in my living room, arms crossed, voice loud enough to shake the ceiling fan. His wife Marissa sat smug on the edge of the couch like she had already won, like this whole thing was some ridiculous game and not my life. You're 75, for God's sake. Just accept it. You're too old to travel. Too old to do anything, he snapped, eyes blazing like I had just committed a crime by daring to want something. My blood boiled. I stood up from my chair, slow, yes, but tall and steady. My cane tapped the wooden floor with purpose. I raised you. Better than this, I said, my voice shaking more from fury than age. You think your grandmother, the woman who marched in protests, worked double shifts as a nurse, and buried her husband with her own hands, is scared of a little journey? You think a few wrinkles mean my soul doesn't burn anymore? He rolled his eyes, muttering, "Here we go again with the drama." No, Daniel, here you go with the disrespect, I fired back. When you were 10 and couldn't sleep because your daddy walked out, who stayed up telling you stories until the sun came up? When you needed money for college, who sold her wedding ring so you could have the shot? He had the nerve to look annoyed. That's not the point, Grandma. That's exactly the point, I thundered. I gave and gave and gave. And now you want to tell me to stay home and rot because it's inconvenient for you to worry about me. There was silence for a beat. Marissa finally stood, fake sweet voice like sugar laced with poison. We're just concerned about your health, Helen. You should be grateful we're trying to protect you. I turned to her, locking eyes. No, you're trying to control me. There's a difference. And then I dropped the bomb. I bought the ticket already. I leave tomorrow, whether you approve or not. Daniel exploded. What? You're serious? Are you even listening to yourself? This isn't just a walk to the grocery store. This is New York, Grandma. By yourself? In your condition? My condition? I laughed coldly. You mean being alive? Being stubborn? Being a woman who refuses to die quietly? His face flushed. You're acting reckless, selfish. No, I said quietly, my voice suddenly calm. I'm finally acting for me, for once in my life. See, I hadn't told them why I needed to go to New York. Not yet. Because it wasn't just a trip. It was a mission, a promise I made 50 years ago to someone I loved. A letter that arrived last week reignited that fire in me, and I wasn't going to let it burn out in silence just because people around me thought my best years were behind me, because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The world is fine watching you fade, as long as you don't make noise about it, as long as you stay quiet in your little corner, waiting to die politely. But I've never been quiet, and I refuse to go. gently into anyone's version of the end. So yes, I was leaving. I was packing my bags and heading to a city I hadn't seen in 50 years. I didn't need permission. I just needed the will. And let me tell you something. I've got plenty of that left. If you've ever been told you're too old, too late, or not enough, I want you to listen carefully. Your time isn't over just because someone younger says it is. There's still a journey inside you, still a fire, still a reason. The story? It's not just mine. It's for every woman who was pushed aside, every grandmother they tried to silence, every fighter they called fragile. Stay with me, because what happens next will prove that age doesn't end a story. It starts the most powerful chapter yet. Asterisk. The next morning, the air in the house was thick, not just with humidity, but with tension. I could feel Daniel pacing in the hallway like a caged animal, still thinking I'd change my mind, still hoping I'd come to my senses, sit back in that chair, and fade into the background like a good little grandma. Asterisk. But he didn't understand. They never do, until it's too late. Asterisk. I zipped up my suitcase slowly, every tooth of the zipper feeling like a small victory. I wasn't packing for comfort. I was packing for truth. In my bag was a silk scarf from 1969, yellowed with age but still carrying the scent of the protest where I met William. There was a photograph of us in Central Park, arms around each other, grinning like the world had already said yes. And there was his letter, the one that arrived 7 days ago, 50 years late. Asterisk. He had written it the night before he deployed to Vietnam. Said he knew he might not make it back. Said if I ever got that letter, and if he wasn't home, I should come find the tree. Asterisk. The tree with our names carved. You remember the one? That's where I'll be, even if I'm just a memory by then. Asterisk. I never got the letter, not in 1971, not in 1981. It ended up lost, buried in a forgotten mailroom, stamped, returned, delayed. Until last week, until I opened my mailbox, hands shaking, and saw his handwriting. It was like time split in half. Asterisk. So no, this wasn't a trip. This was a return, a reckoning, a final chapter. One refused to let someone else write for me. Asterisk. As I lifted my suitcase, Daniel burst into the room, jaw tight. You're seriously doing this? Asterisk. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Asterisk. He followed me down the hallway, begging now. What if something happens to you on the plane? What if you fall in a hotel lobby and no one knows who you are? Asterisk. I'm not scared of dying, Daniel, I said, turning to him. I'm scared of regretting. I've had a full life, but that doesn't mean it's finished. I deserve this moment. Asterisk. He shook his head like I was being reckless. This is insane. What's even in New York that matters so much? Asterisk. I turned to him with a strange sort of peace, a goodbye I never got to say. And for once, he didn't have a comeback. Just stared, the way people stare when they realize they can't control you anymore. Asterisk. I didn't ask for a ride. I didn't need his approval. I called for a cab, walked myself down the front steps, and lifted my chin as the sun hit my face. It felt like a blessing, like the universe was proud of me for still wanting. Asterisk. The ride to the airport was quiet, but not lonely. I had William in my pocket, his words in my chest, My memory's like armor, asterisk. When the TSA agent asked if I was traveling alone, I smiled and said, "Not exactly." Asterisk, I looked down at the letter again and whispered, "I'm bringing a ghost home." Asterisk, now, don't get me wrong. The trip wasn't easy. My knees ached, my back stiffened. The flight was bumpy, and the man next to me spilled coffee all over my sweater. But none of it mattered, asterisk, because when I stepped out of JFK Airport, breathing in the chaos of New York City, something in me lit up, asterisk. I remembered this energy, the madness, the promise, asterisk, the way the sidewalks practically dared you to dream big. No matter who you were, asterisk. I checked into a small hotel on the Upper West Side. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. I dropped my bag on the bed, opened the window, and let the city noise flood in like music, asterisk, and then I pulled out the photo, the tree. I knew exactly where it was, near the reservoir in Central Park, not far from where we first kissed, not far from where we carved our initials one reckless afternoon when we still believed time owed us something. Asterisk, my heart pounded as I made my way through the park. Every step felt like walking through a memory. Lovers on benches, joggers passing, children chasing pigeons. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking for him, and then I saw it, the tree, older now, bent at the middle, bark darkened and thick, but still standing like me. Asterisk, I walked up slowly, hands trembling, and placed my palm on its trunk. There it was, a chi plus W asterisk, faded, nearly swallowed by age and moss, but there, still there. I broke, asterisk. I collapsed to my knees, tears flooding out before I could stop them, asterisk, and for a second, I swear I felt a breeze wrap around me like a hug, asterisk. I made it, William, I whispered. I came back, you waited, and I'm here, asterisk, and for the first time in years, I wasn't grieving, I was completing something. I sat by that tree until the sun began to set behind the skyline, and as I stood to leave, I realized something. I wasn't just saying goodbye to him, asterisk. I was saying goodbye to the version of me who kept waiting for permission to live. She was gone now, and what remained was a woman who had finally taken her journey. Asterisk. The next morning, I woke up with the ache of purpose in my bones. The kind of ache that tells you you've done something brave. I sat by the hotel window with a cup of bitter coffee and watched the city unfold. Cars honking, dogs barking, street vendors yelling, and somewhere in the middle of it all, me. A 75-year-old woman who had nothing left to prove, but everything left to feel. Asterisk. I had planned to visit the tree again, maybe write a note, maybe leave a flower. But life, as it always does, had another plan. My phone rang. I expected it to be Daniel, angry or scared or maybe finally proud. But it wasn't. It was Emily, my granddaughter, asterisk. Grandma? She whispered like she was afraid I wouldn't pick up, asterisk. I softened. Hi, sweetheart, asterisk. There was silence, then a shaky breath. Is it true? You're really in New York? Asterisk. I smiled. I really am, asterisk. Another pause. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Dad thinks you've lost your mind, asterisk. I laughed gently. I've finally found it, baby. I'm doing something for me. Asterisk. She exhaled again, this time not with worry, but with something closer to awe. I think it's kinda amazing. Asterisk, that stopped me. My heart caught in my chest. Asterisk, you do? Asterisk, yeah, she said, voice steady now. I mean, you've always done everything for everyone else. You raised Dad after Grandpa died. You helped me with school. You even gave up your own trip to Paris. When Mom got sick, you never got your moment. Asterisk, my eyes stung with tears. I hadn't known she noticed. I hadn't known anyone did. Asterisk, thank you, sweetheart, I whispered. That means more than you know. Asterisk, I wanna come. Visit you, she blurted out suddenly. I'll tell Mom I'm staying with a friend and I'll book a bus. I wanna see you. I wanna see that tree. Asterisk, the air thickened. My throat closed. That old fear crept up, the one that whispered, don't let them in. They'll just try to stop you. But Emily wasn't trying to stop me. Asterisk, she wanted to understand me. Asterisk, okay, I said softly. Okay, come. Asterisk, I gave her the address, then sat back down and stared out the window again, but this time the world looked different. I wasn't just carrying William anymore. I was carrying legacy. And maybe, just maybe, I was passing it on. A few hours later, there was a knock on my door. I expected room service. Maybe a maid, asterisk, but when I opened it, I froze. Daniel, standing there, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. Asterisk, I tracked your phone. He said flatly, I know you didn't want me here, but I needed to say something. Asterisk, I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Go ahead. Asterisk, he stepped inside, then turned to face me. I'm sorry. The words hit me like thunder. He swallowed hard. I was scared, not just for you, but of you. Because you're doing what I never had the guts to do. You're chasing something even if it's painful, and I thought, if I stopped you, maybe I wouldn't have to look at all the ways I've settled. Asterisk, I didn't speak. I let the silence answer him. Asterisk, I read the letter, he added quietly. Emily showed it to me. She said you deserved to go. And she was right. I stared at him for a long moment. Then finally I whispered, thank you. Asterisk, he looked up, eyes glistening. Can we go to the tree together? Before Emily gets here? Something in me cracked. I nodded. Asterisk, we walked side by side, like strangers trying to find their way back to being family. The path looked different this time. Less lonely. The tree stood like a monument, unchanged by time, and I introduced him to it the way you'd introduce someone to a childhood friend. Asterisk, this is where I found myself again. I said softly. Asterisk, he reached out, touched the bark, then whispered, I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. Asterisk, I placed my hand over his. I've always been right here. And for the first time in decades, Daniel pulled me into a hug. A real one. Asterisk, not rushed. Not polite, asterisk, but broken and whole at the same time. Asterisk, we stood there like that, mother and son, as the wind rustled through the leaves and the sun painted gold across our faces. And I realized something. Maybe this journey wasn't about saying goodbye. Maybe it was about opening a door, asterisk, to the past, to the future, to forgiveness. Asterisk, Emily arrived just before sunset, running through the grass with tears in her eyes and joy in her smile. She hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs would break. Asterisk. I'm so proud of you, she whispered into my shoulder. Asterisk, and for the first time in my life, I finally believed I deserved it. Asterisk, we stayed at that tree until the sky bruised into dusk, a violet kind of silence hanging between the three of us. Daniel, quieter than I'd ever seen him. Emily, holding my hand like she never wanted to let go. And me, an old woman with tired legs and a full heart. I thought that was the end of it, the closure, the healing, the moment that wrapped everything into a neat little bow, asterisk, but then I saw it, asterisk, a glint, half buried beneath the roots of the tree. Like the earth itself was offering me something, asterisk. I knelt down, brushed away the dirt, and pulled it free. It was a small silver locket. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. Maybe a stranger's, maybe forgotten. But when I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. Asterisk inside was a photo of me and William. Younger, smiling, sitting on this exact bench by this very tree. And on the back of the locket, scratched in the faintest handwriting, asterisk, I hoped you'd come back someday. Whoa, asterisk, I stared at it like it was a ghost, because it was. He had been here, he knew. He had left something for me, even after death. Asterisk, Daniel crouched beside me. What is that? Asterisk, I handed it to him wordlessly. My hands were shaking too much to hold it. Asterisk, he turned it over, read the inscription, and his face changed. The kind of change that comes when truth hits you square in the chest. Asterisk, he loved you so much, he whispered. Asterisk, I nodded, tears now streaming. And I never got to say goodbye. Asterisk, Emily leaned in. Maybe you don't have to. Asterisk, the idea clung to me like morning fog. Maybe this was goodbye. Maybe this locket was his way of saying he was proud of me, that he saw me still fighting, still living, still walking toward our memories instead of away from them. Asterisk, and just like that, I knew what I had to do. Asterisk. We drove to the coast that night. Me, Daniel, and Emily in a rental car that smelled like new plastic and old memories. The wind rolled through the windows and no one spoke much because we didn't need to. I held the locket the entire ride, clutched in my palm like a second heartbeat. Asterisk, by the time we reached the cliffs, the stars had claimed the sky. I walked to the edge alone, my feet unsteady but my spirit firm. Below, the ocean roared, wild, untamed, like the grief I had carried for years. Asterisk, I opened the locket one last time, kissed the photo, and whispered, I found my way, William. Then I threw it, not in anger, not in sorrow, in release. It sailed through the air like a silver comet, then disappeared into the black water. Gone, but not lost. Nothing ever really is. Asterisk, when I turned around, Daniel was crying. Asterisk, I walked to him slowly, then wrapped my arms around his waist. Asterisk, I'm proud of you, Ma, he said into my hair, not because you made this trip, but because you finally chose you. Asterisk, Emily smiled softly beside us, and maybe now we can start choosing each other again. And that was it, the full circle. Asterisk, I had started this journey thinking it was the end of my story, some final chapter written in solitude. Asterisk, but it wasn't. It was a beginning. I came to New York to remember someone I loved, but I ended up discovering the people who still loved me and who were just waiting for me to show them I was still here, asterisk, still strong,
Still worthy, still alive. Asterisk, asterisk, if you're listening to this,
and you've ever been told you're too old, too late, or too broken, I want you to hear me clearly. It's never too late to chase your unfinished story. It's never too late to be seen, to be heard, to be loved again, asterisk, and it is never too late to find your way back to yourself. Don't let the world tell you when your time is over. Your time is yours, asterisk, and if no one else says it, I will. You're still worth the journey, asterisk. It's been a year since that night on the cliff. The waves still crash against the rocks the same way. The wind still howls. But something inside me has changed forever. Asterisk, I'm back home now, in a little sunlit house where the windows creak when it rains and the kettle whistles a little too loud. I've filled it with photographs, not just of William, but of me, Daniel, Emily, and now their daughter, Lila. Yes, I'm a great-grandmother now, and every time I hold her, every time she curls her tiny fingers around mine, I whisper to her, "You come from strength." Not because I'm strong all the time, but because I chose to be, even when I was tired, even when I was afraid, asterisk, that locket may be gone, but its message lives in me every single day. I hoped you'd come back someday, and I did. I came back to my family. I came back to myself. Asterisk, Daniel visits every Sunday now. He brings pastries and stories and carries Lila in one arm like she's made of stars. Emily stays longer too. She and I have become friends. Not because we forgot the pain, but because we decided to make room for new joy. We laugh in the kitchen. We fold baby clothes on the couch. We sit in the garden and talk about everything and nothing. It's not perfect, but it's real. And I'll take real over perfect any day. Asterisk, last week, Daniel asked me something that made me cry in the most beautiful way. Asterisk, he said, "Mom, would you record a video for Lila? For when she's older, just tell her who you are, where you've been, what you've learned." I sat in front of his camera and looked at the blinking red light like it was the eye of time itself. And this is what I told her. Asterisk, Lila, my name is Evelyn May. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I'm 75 years old, and I have lived through heartbreak, laughter, war, love, loneliness, and joy. I have been called old, stubborn, irrelevant, but I've also been called brave, wise, and needed. I've lost people I thought I couldn't live without. I've made mistakes that nearly swallowed me whole. But I've also found redemption in the most unexpected places. I paused, took a breath, then continued. If you ever feel like life has passed you by, don't believe that lie. I was 75 when I took the most important journey of my life. I was 75 when I found out that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering who you still are. I leaned in, eyes wet but steady. Don't be afraid to leave home when your heart says go. And don't be afraid to come back when it's time. Because love doesn't live in a house or a grave or a photograph. Love lives in your choice too. Show up again and again for the people who matter. The red light turned off. I wiped my face, asterisk, and for the first time in decades, I felt completely at peace. Sometimes I still hear that phrase echo in my memory, asterisk, stay home, Grandma, you're too old. Asterisk, but now, I smile when I hear it, because I proved it wrong in the most powerful way. Asterisk, I didn't stay home. I didn't give up. I didn't fade into the background. I stood up. I showed up, and I changed everything. And if I can do that, you can too. Age is not the end of the road. It's just the bend, where you finally see what truly matters. Asterisk, don't let anyone put an expiration date on your dreams, your voice, or your heart. Asterisk, you're never too old to be the beginning of something beautiful. Asterisk.